Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Saman Rakim. I'm a sales engineer with Legrand's Cabinet and Containment Group. Welcome to the next installment of Planning It Like a Pro series. Today's topic is going to be handling surprises during containment installation. Everybody here has probably dealt with a containment installation that didn't go so well. So we're going to go through some of the some issues that I've personally dealt with and how those were handled. My role as a sales engineer is to provide expertise and project management assistance to companies looking to install hot aisle or cold aisle containment in their new or existing space. In my time with the company, I have designed and managed dozens of containment installations ranging from a single row to entire data centers. Today, we're going to go through some real life examples that I've experienced and truly believe will help everyone on their upcoming projects.
Okay. Really
Some of the highlights for this segment are to share with you what the initial engagement looks like when customers decide that they are ready for containment. To me, this is probably the most important step that we're going to go over. Making sure that you have all the information available to the vendor is critical to getting a proper containment solution and then getting it off the ground and finished without any complications. The first scenario that we're going to go through deals with modifying an engineered solution on site. The second scenario covers how a modular solution prevents challenges when there's a change in floor layout once the containment gets on site. And finally, we're going to go through some steps you can take to better prepare yourself for the next containment project. Just to recap what we discussed in our previous segment, common containment mistakes, the five major mistakes were assumptions, connections and anchoring, skyscraper rows, available supporting structures, and modularity. Now let's dive in and see what a typical containment engagement looks like. So as a sales engineer, this is typically what I would see from a customer when they're ready to engage with us for containment. It's typically a top-down view of the space, all the rows existing or future cabinets listed out. And if we're lucky, we get the penetrations and the locations of the penetrations through the containment that we need to design for. In some cases, when the customer doesn't have the space designed or the information is privileged and they're not able to give us the layout, uh, our sales engineering team goes out on site, takes all the applicable measurements, and discusses the options that we have with the particular customer for the specific scenario that we're designing for. So what we do from there is we take this 2D layout and we do a rough preliminary drawing based on that drawing and any pertinent information that they have in the initial assessment. It's not necessarily done in crayon like the picture, but it's about as much information as we present in the initial design. For the quickest turnaround on these drawings, knowing the cable infrastructure above the cabinets or any penetrations through the containment would be best. Once we get preliminary approval on the overall containment design, we then take that design and create it in 3D space using a CAD program, and we submit a document with all these 3D models for final submission. The final drawing includes pertinent dimensions like overall containment height, cabinet height, aisle width, aisle length, and things of that nature. Now we'll dive into an example of how containment needed to be changed once on site. We're going to start this from the beginning, and although you're going to see some of the same images we used in previous slides, we're going to start this one from the beginning. So if you recall from the 2D layout, the cabinet and containment location was very clear. If it was on the hot side or the cold side, depending on if it's a hot aisle containment or cold aisle containment, is also very important to note up front. Typically, in this particular case, we designed it so that the customer can roll the cabinets into and out of the containment space without modifying the containment, without modifying or removing the containment from above for their requirement. And you typically see this in colo space where the cabinets themselves are owned by the customer and the containment is owned by the facility. The customer doesn't necessarily want to get facilities permission to remove the cabinets and have to remove the containment. Then based on those requirements, we created a 3D drawing. And what the customer had told us was that nothing can be mounted to the cabinets themselves for that reason. So we designed the containment system to be mounted directly from the ceiling overhead and and go from there. Once the material was received on site, it was almost immediately stopped by building management. The customer was not aware that the ceiling that we were attaching to was not weight bearing. So, and this was one of those particular projects where I was on site and we had a whole crew of installers from Virginia come up to do the installation. And we had everybody just waiting on direction from the customer and the facility on how to proceed. After a couple days, we designed a containment solution that attached to the structural ceiling that was about 12 feet above the acoustical ceiling that we had originally designed to attach to. And when we sent additional material on site, the project was then back on track and the final solution turned out spectacular. While this set the project back a few weeks and we were able to get the customer what they needed, had it been known that the acoustical ceiling was not weight bearing, we could have prevented this delay and the project would have gone off without any issues. In the following scenario, we're going to go over challenges between day 1 and day 2 configuration. This is one of those challenges that sometimes can't be avoided depending on customer requirements. Cabinets are not always owned by the facility and a customer might have to change the location from the day the layout was designed to the day that the containment gets on site. And for that, you need a modular solution. On this slide, you'll see a sketch that a customer provided to us for cold aisle containment. And in the image labeled customer layout for reference, some of the cabinet heights were different in the row. And typically, if the space is not designed or known and all the cabinets are not consistent, the sales engineer will go on site or the installer will go on site and take all the required measurements and produce an image like the one labeled customer layout for reference so that it goes back to the facility to design and produce the proper material. In the case of hot aisle containment, the information is a lot more in depth, as you can imagine. Based on the drawing provided, we created our preliminary cold aisle containment design, but realized that it couldn't be an engineered solution, so we offered our Containment Flex product. As an overview for viewers who are not familiar, product is extremely modular and adaptable by installers on site rather than pre-cut at the factory. This is great for customers looking to get material on site extremely fast and have someone build it on site to the existing layout that they have in the data center on that day, rather than hoping that the layout is the same when it's ordered to when it's on site. When the installers were on site, they quickly realized that the cabinet had shifted positions within the space, and if they had not ordered the Containment Flex or a fully flexible product, they would have had to stop and scrap the material that they purchased and wait for a newly engineered solution. This could have set the project back weeks, and when you've scheduled people to install the containment, it's almost impossible to send them home without some repercussions. Instead, they were able to configure the parts and pieces to the new layout since the number of cabinets remained pretty much the same. The installers were on the phone letting me know what they had to modify and how they were doing on material, so we were ready to ship more in case the layout had drastically changed. At the end, the final solution did what it was intended to do and contain the cold aisle. In the images you see on the screen, the end of row was capped off with dual sliding doors. The empty cabinet positions were filled in with vertical cap filler panels. On this slide, the vertical location of the cold aisle containment roof was made uniform using filler panels above the cabinets to get a level playing field for the cold aisle to rest on. We contain the cold air by creating a grid on top of the roof of the cabinets that use drop-away roof inserts and framed above the cabinets for the roof to sit on. At the end, the project went off with a few minor hitches, but on track and on time for the customer. The right partner should be able to guide you to the right solution, which will in turn lead to a smoother overall containment project. Bottom line, proper preparation prevents poor performance. The next step for us, we will send an email with a download link to this presentation. If you have an immediate question or need advice with a project, go to the website on the screen. There, you will be able to get in contact with myself or another qualified sales engineer for any containment questions that you may have. Thank you for watching this segment of Planning It Like a Pro series, and have a great rest of your day.